So welcome to today's update video, and we have quite a glory to watch in the Eastern Pacific right now. As this is, well, first of all, this is the remnants of Kevin. Probably eventually going to bring some high clouds to California. But, obviously the much bigger story is this very distinct hurricane as the sun visible, with a very distinct eye feature, as you can notice in the satellite feature, this visible satellite feature, at least before the sun goes down, which is not yet. And the latest National Hurricane Center increased the intensity at the latest advisory from 90 knots to 100 knots. So winds at the latest advisory at 2 o'clock Pacific time, or 21Z UTC time, is at 100 knots, 115 miles per hour. Minimum central pressure of 965 millibars, and it's okay at 17.5 and 112.99 W. It's moving west-northwest at 12 knots or 14 miles per hour. And boy, it is one hurricane. You can see the eye for the longest time. You can see for the longest time the eye was kind of a little bit ragged looking, not fully circular. The storm almost looking like a little bit like a square. The system had several periods of drier intrusion. And it took several attempts for this hurricane to actually finally clear an eye, but now it did. But also, while there was also stretching time, you can see on this Lotus Pass, you can sort of see deep convection on the west side was pretty shallow. But now it seems you can see in this eye loop straight now. Looking at this on Black Dvorak, you can see at least the latest frame kind of has a partial B ring, and the system will probably redevelop a full black ring in the next hour. So the system actually did have a black ring on the eastern side. It seemed to have went away, and I just think it's just convection just happening to be, for whatever reason, happening to be a little bit warmer in that area. I mean, the system may have briefly, the system definitely had some drier issues earlier. It was evident on one microwave pass, it seemed pretty evident. But since the storm started to fix itself at around shortly after the release of the previous National Hurricane Center advisory, restructure-wise, the cloud tops initially remain cool. It's also possible that you can sort of see it here on the sea surface temperature map. It's also possible that the cold wake of Tropical Storm Kevin may have hurt the system a little bit for a bit. But now it seems to be getting on the right track again. It's also come to think about this, may explain some of the convection that's a little bit weak on the eastward side, now strong on the westward side. But nevertheless, probably the most important development, probably the most strongest evidence for strengthening since the latest NHC advisory is the most important evidence for strengthening since the latest National Hurricane Advisory is the eye becoming much more circular. Let me see if I can. 100. Let me see if I can show its evolution throughout the day. You can see how warm the cloud tops were, and you can see the eye just becoming much more distinct and circular. It's a very, very classical buzzsaw. You can see this on visible. This is a very classic. This is a very, very classic hurricane, much like Hurricane Felicia from a few weeks back was. I mean, you can see the system still does have some banding features, but the ship's model now, the shear direction from the ship's model does suggest that in a couple days, this wind shear is going to reverse from westerly to easterly. I'm not entirely sure why, but I think it might have to do with the fact that easterly shear means the system is moving the same direction as the hurricane, so that kind of allows for increased symmetry. But eastward, and there's a link between systems in very low easterly shear environments and annular hurricanes, and Hurricane Felicia was an example of a system that kind of met that mold, and it seems that in less than a couple days now, they've been pushing the time frame of this change forward. And what I'll just show right here. Oh, never mind. Do I have? I don't have the tab open, so never mind. I can't. I was gonna show the shear maps, but I don't have it open. But in a couple days, the wind shear's forecast, and even now, or even less now, since as I was saying, the GFS is pushing the time frame for the shear switch a little bit upwards a little bit. Now likely allow us to sustain at least the structure for a long time. Even if the sea surface temperatures are somewhat marginal, though it's actually going to fluctuate a bit. The global models have settled on a track. The global models have settled on bringing the system to about 17 degrees north, maybe around 17 degrees north. And the GFS is coming into agreement on that scenario as well. And that will kind of allow for a period for on its current track system will maintain over sea surface temperatures over 26 C but barely for much of the next 4 days. There'll be a brief period where the system moves over colder water. So the system's likely to be very slow to weaken, likely to have some periods where the storm weakens gradually, and then sudden periods of reorganization. In fact, there's a good chance we're going through one right now based on the recent cooling of the CDO on its eastward side. The system is still somewhat bearing dominant, so it's not really a full-fledged annual hurricane yet. Earlier I was saying the system kind of looked like one of those Category 3 Cape Verde hurricanes in the Atlantic. Now I think it looks a bit better than that. Now it's starting to get that classical buzzsaw look. Dealing with the latest microwave pass, you can see there's maybe some hint of an island replacement cycle, but overall the storm structure is very stable. You can see the very dry environment with the relatively dry environment. Kind of can limit some of the convective mixing that takes place. Kind of also allows for sufficient substance to support a very warm eye. And honestly, this is starting to really remind me of hurricane. This is starting to really remind me a lot of Hurricane Felicia. I mean, the current short term, the National Hurricane Center brings the system up to about 110 knots, and then gradually weakens. And I think that's a fairly reasonable projection. Though the storm keeps this up the way it's trending, the storm will probably become a Category 4 hurricane overnight, and then again oscillate intensity, which while gradually weakening over the next several days. Then by day 5 and beyond, the system will actually move over some very cold waters. The system will actually move over some cold waters here about 20 north and 132 to 2 degrees west. And where the system's actually a little bit harder to actually sustain serious convection, the storm will probably at least completely dissipate by about 5 to 6 days from now. But until then, I could just see a very long track hurricane. And that was actually reasonably well anticipated by models for a change. And for a change, it seems the model system has actually been at least close to the kind of hurricane that was originally advertised by the global computer models. Anyhow, that's it for today. This is a quiet buzzsaw hurricane. I may have to do slightly more frequent updates. I'll probably do another video tomorrow, and then we'll see. But anyway, that's it for today. Hope you guys learn this video about this buzzsaw hurricane in the East Pacific. Or learn something from this video, rather.